Welcome back to the Beyond Electric Sheep podcast. I'm Brick Thompson.
And I'm Ed Daniels.
Hey, Ed. So I wanted to continue our discussion from our last episode, basically about how we're using AI ourselves as business people. We talked mostly about LLMs and some of the use cases there. I talked a little bit about a program I'm using to transcribe voice memos when I come in. You said you're using Midjourney for doing some images and so on. And then we talked about prompting.
Yes.
And you had said you did a class. But the feeling, I want to go back to that one because the feeling I got from you is that, okay, it was good to do the class. You maybe learned some stuff. I think it was 12 hours, cost you $300.
Right.
I sort of got the feeling reading between the lines that you maybe think you don't really need to do that much. Maybe just need to get some basics. Do you have any recommendation? Like if one of your friends said, hey, how do I get started? Where would you send them?
Right. Well, first of all, let me just say that prompting these LLMs is not a natural process. I mean, if you write code, you may think about the logic ahead of time. You may build code from various libraries, and it's not like that. If you're instructing somebody in a classroom, it's not quite like that. This whole prompting thing is pretty unique. So I'll tell you, I did take that class. I thought the class was good for me. As with a lot of classes, I got a lot out of meeting the instructor and interacting with him. And some of the people in the class were from, as I mentioned last time, from the UK and from Holland and various places in the US. So I got a lot out of them. But actually, in building the prompts, we had a few different examples, but that wasn't the best place to learn about prompting. Where I really learned about prompting was building some bots with this platform I mentioned called UAI.ai. And it's basically a bot building platform. And so you have a chance to actually build in the architecture, and then you build up the prompt.
The base prompt.
You build up, actually, there's several components. So you build some background learning. So you write some prompts that you ask a person, what's your name? These are, this is all flexible, but I'd say, enter your name. How do you want the style of responding? Do you want it to be formal or informal? And you can put a slider in there that will allow the person to do that. You can say, for example, some of the bots that I was writing provide a writing tool. So I'll say, put in a writing sample. So put in an article that you've written or some, a paper that you've written, put that in, and the bot will use that as to learn your style. The second part of it is the sort of prompt or preface itself, and that's where you're instructing the LLM as to how to respond. You're telling them what's their persona, who are they supposed to behave like? Is this are they going to respond in, as I mentioned, a formal way or an informal way? All of the instructions, including how you want the bot to provide its output.
Okay.
So that's the second module. The third module is an automation. So here's where you can build an actual workflow to interact with the user and ask questions, ask to provide input. I mentioned to you that I was building a bot for company owners to talk about the company that they're interested in selling. Right. So I'd say, why do you want to sell it? How much do you want to sell it for, etc.
Okay.
Yes, in an automation. And so then also another cool part is you get to pick the LLM you want to use. Do you want to use GPT-4? Do you want to use Claude? Do you want to use Bard? You have a choice as to which one of these LLMs you want to use.
Can you switch that out easily and see how the different ones perform?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And so then you can fire it up and test it out in a demo mode. And then cool. you interact with it yourself and see how it runs through that whole process and the type of response that it gives you. And you can constrain it to only respond in a very limited fashion, or you can turn up the heat and let it respond in a completely sort of wild and freeform type of fashion. So anyways, I just learned. So yeah, you originally asked me, how did you learn how to build these prompts? Well, that was such a tremendous tool because you've got a purpose, but you have a chance to build these prompts with some real degree of detail.
That's cool. All right, what's it called again?
UAI.ai.
And what does it cost?
YOUAI.ai. And at the moment it's in beta. It's free.
So it's free. All right, I'm definitely going to check that out. So you do a lot of consulting in healthcare IT.
Right.
Do you see, is there like a near-term use for stuff like that in what you're doing?
Well, people are using these bots now. For example, the biggest medical record system company that there is, a company called Epic, did team up with Microsoft, and they're using GPT to do natural language processing to be able to look at medical record data and extract information. Now, I'm not exactly sure the details of how that's working, but people are using that tool, and it's a little dangerous because how do you know exactly what the model is using? And if you're talking about information about a patient, for example, you got to be careful about that.
Right.
However, because it's a joint deal with Microsoft, we can bet that that's locked down pretty darn well and not being actually pulled in the LLM for other people's uses. Yeah.
Well, and you can do that with Microsoft Azure now for any company. You can get your walled off version. I read about that and I thought, that's going to be expensive. You can do your own training set and so on. I went and looked it up. I mean, they measure the cost per token in I think it was like thousandths of a cent or something. So, and they gave some examples of, I wish I could remember what it was, but seemed like a huge number of tokens to do your own training, and it costs $2 or something like that. So, okay, yeah. That's cool.
Well, I think that's the future, and that's what I'm going to be looking into in my healthcare consulting world, is really how well we can wall off these models and how well we can focus them in and deal with this type of highly confidential information. There's a big ethical responsibility there to keep that information private, but there's also a big dollar penalty if you breach private information. So you have to be careful about that.
Personal health info?
Yeah, PHI, personal health information.
Yeah, huge fines for every occurrence. So,
right. Yeah. So you got to be careful about that.
Interesting. Yeah. It's actually, this is making me think about at my business. I've got a marketing department that we write articles and white papers and so on. And we've been using LLMs probably for a year and a half, maybe. I can't remember when we started using Jasper, that was based on an early version of GPT. But I was thinking if we did our own self-training on the writing we've done, not the AI writing, but just the original writing, and even AI augmented writing that we've gone in and edited to make it look like we want, I bet you we would get a lot better help. So we use it to help write outlines and that type of thing.
I strongly suggest that because, I just do that in a limited way. It depends what your prompt window is, but, you can put as much in there as possible and instruct it then. One of the things that I did learn about prompting is you have to instruct it to use that to learn style, but not to use the information that's in there if you don't want it to bleed over. You might, in this case, you might want it to bleed over, but you have to be clear to the model about how to utilize that information. But I think that makes sense. But of course, you can go to the next extent and use Azure or build your own vector database and really pull in that information. I think that's going to be a real important approach.
Yeah. It's an interesting topic. It actually makes me think of something I've been thinking about a lot, which is, if everybody's using LLMs to write all their content, you sort of get this self-referencing bunch of content out there that's not very interesting. I worried about that 6 months ago. I thought, okay, if our marketing team starts using that, do we just end up not having very valuable content? Because our content, the whole idea about our content marketing is we want to put valuable information out there. What I've found is that we still do a ton of edits. If we get an outline or even, hey, give us a rough draft, you have to do a lot of edits to get it to be really good. Right. Otherwise, it tends to be a little robotic, a little bit generic.
Yes.
So anyway, anybody out there who's doing that, I would caution you not to just.
I think that is the writing workflow, right? If you just have to quickly get out a paragraph that really doesn't matter or something, fine, you can ask GPT to do that. But if you really want to write something that's serious, I just wrote an article on how artificial intelligence is eventually growing into artificial general intelligence, which then purportedly will automatically grow into superintelligence. Anyway, I just wrote an article on that, but I started out, here's my workflow. I think I can be really fast about it. First, I asked GPT-4 to write about that exact topic. Is this going to morph into this? Is this going to morph into that? And then I got that, and I thought, this is okay, but it's not all the details, and it certainly doesn't tell the story that I want to tell. So then I said, okay, well, I'm going to use some of that it told me, but I'm going to write the article myself. So then I did. I wrote it, maybe a 1,000-word article. And then I said, okay, now I want GPT-4 to give me feedback on this, edit it. I said, edit this article, correct any typos or grammatical errors, and improve it in a limited way, but then tell me exactly what you did to improve it. Because, I didn't mark it up, but it's summarized. It changed the article, and then at the end, it told me exactly what it did and how it changed it. And then I took that, and then I said, okay, well, and now I'm going to improve it from here. And so then I sort of tuned it up from there to be the way that I wanted it. And then, that was it, except for I did use Midjourney to do the illustration.
That's cool. I tried to use it. Oh, we're getting long on time here again. Trying to say 10 minutes, but really quickly, I tried to use it to write an email to the company that I run. I send one out approximately every week. I thought, this will help me. I can give it the outline of what I want to talk about. What I got back needed so much editing. I would have probably written it in, 60% or 70% of the time if I had just written it from scratch. And so I haven't tried that since then. But that's an interesting workflow that you had. That I may give that a try. All right, Ed, thanks. This has been great. See you next time.
Rick. All right.